Hey again everyone, and welcome back to the channel for another figure showcase special. And for today's installment, we'll be doing a quick look at the full set of figures from Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. And again, thanks to my friend Fabs from Fabs Figure, who gave me a great deal on both of these. Honestly, I tend to not back collect, so I figured I'd missed out on these, but having them in hand, I'm actually really happy that I got the chance to pick them up. So this won't be a review, just a few thoughts as well as we look at the two figures together on the figures, the movies. If you do want to see reviews, I went into each figure in a lot more detail earlier this week, and needless to say, I loved both of them. Look, they aren't the most accessory heavy figures you'll get, but they're also not exactly bare bones, so a more middle of the road release for Hot Toys. Honestly, and maybe surprisingly for me, my favorite of the two is the Newt, which I wasn't expecting. I just think he has the better sculpt of the two. Although the Grindelwald Johnny Depp sculpt is definitely growing on me. I do still think it's softened up a little bit from the prototype. And even if you see the box art, the hair, for example, has some finer detailing which is missing from the figure. It doesn't take away from the overall product, which is still pretty good, but it's just something I have to flag. Obviously, if you like these movies, there's a little bit more of a connection to both of these characters. For me, as a big fan of the Wizarding World, there was definitely a renewed interest in the franchise as a whole, partly with my kids getting into the books and the movies. And I have to admit, rewatching all the movies, including the Fantastic Beasts ones, kind of reminded me of how enjoyable the franchise as a whole was. I don't think the Fantastic Beasts movies were as good as the Harry Potter series, but I did think they were an interesting expansion of the universe. And in particular, I love the look at the American Ministry of Magic. And it was nice to see kind of the far-reaching impact of Grindelwald from a world scale, as opposed to Voldemort, who, while still having a significant impact on the Wizarding World, seemed much more confined to the British and the UK kind of sphere. So that was a plus. And honestly, that first movie had a ton of other interesting aspects to it, like seeing the R's and a little bit more action. And also, it was interesting having Colin Farrell show up in the movie, and that was a nice little surprise when we ultimately get the reveal that he was, in fact, Grindelwald in disguise. I did like that in the first movie, also Newt kind of just got caught up in everything that was happening. It was just a welcome change of pace, and I liked how Newt was portrayed as a very awkward individual. To be honest, again, big difference from characters like Dumbledore, even Harry, that we saw kind of approach things in a different, more confident style. So it was a cool change of pace. And then Grindelwald, kind of just a presence in the first movie until the end, before he takes more center stage in the second film. But I really like Johnny Depp's performance. It was almost reserved, and he just had such a great look to him, which I think the figure captures nicely. It's not an outlandish, over-the-top performance, which I felt made him that much more imposing. He's almost a calmer version of Voldemort, winning people over more by his charisma than by fear. So a great character, and like I said during the figure review, I just wish that Warner Brothers had reconsidered recasting him. I know there were personal issues at play, but while I like Mads Mikkelsen, I just think it was a jarring recast, and they didn't even try to keep the same look, which was also a little surprising, and it felt disjointed. So it felt just like a totally different character. So it's nice to have both of these in the collection. I think Hot Toys did a great job with both pieces. I think Newt with that magical suitcase is a great addition to the Wizarding World, and the world created around him with the magical creatures was just really creative. I think that's the right word for it. From the creature designs to having his home be completely portable, we saw stuff like that in the original Harry Potter movies with Hermione's bag and the tent that the Weasleys have during the Quidditch World Cup, but nothing to this extent. I did pose both of these characters kind of facing off, which they don't really do in the movie, so having a Jude Law Dumbledore would have been a better option, but look, I'm taking some creative license here. So in addition to the figures, it's great to have some of the creatures as well. The Bowtruckle is key, and for such a small nonverbal character, he's got a huge impact. And obviously the Nifflers. I mean, that was a great highlight from the first movie, with the creature having such an interesting and mischievous personality. So I'm glad Hot Toys moved forward with those two figures. The third creature, it's okay. I think scale-wise, it was a nice thing to get as an added accessory, but he doesn't do anything in the movies at all. Had this been from the third movie, I would imagine that they would have probably given us the baby creature whose name I won't even try to pronounce. Anything else, unfortunately, I think would have been way too big to give us. And since the movies weren't exactly the most successful, just no money to be made in these. I think if you're a fan of the movies, you'll love these figures like I do. The highlights are really the tailoring here too. Figures look similar enough, like they occupy the same world, but the work that Hot Toys did to recreate the look, the overall look, is fantastic. And both figures look very classy. I think that's what always pops to mind. I do have all 3 in-art Harry Potter figures on order, so I think these will look great with them. Although I have been looking at the Star Ace figures a little. I know, I'm not going to do that to myself. But I'm not going to lie, seeing some of the characters they made, I have been tempted. But while I think that it would be nice to have those characters, I'm not sure it would go well with the Hot Toys or in-art version. So I think this might be it for me for the moment. But beautiful figures. I don't think they're for everyone at all, but for me they're awesome, and I'm glad to have had the chance to pick these up. So let me know your thoughts on the series, and if you do own the Star Ace figures, I'd be curious to hear your thoughts on those as well. Not saying I'm in a rush to get those, but it'd be nice to hear some thoughts. So thanks for watching, and if you're enjoying the content, please consider dropping a like, comment, or subscribing, and we'll touch base on the next video.